Hi, I'm Dennis from Plain Truth Ministry. Welcome to Friday in the Word. Today I want to talk about proper positioning and Christ's supremacy. The passage that I'm going to use is a little bit long. It comes from Paul's letter to the Colossians, chapter 1, verses 13 through 20. Paul wrote the letter to the church at Colossae at the request of its pastor Epaphras, who came to Rome to see Paul in prison to get advice, to get information, to get proper understanding. And he wanted Paul to deliver a message to the church because Paul would have been seen as the expert on the truth of the gospel by this point in time among the Gentiles. And Epaphras felt that Paul's words would carry more weight than his own. The passage itself reads, "He delivered us from the power of darkness and conveyed us into the kingdom of the Son of his love, in whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For by him all things were created that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things consist. And he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he may have preeminence. For it pleased the Father that in him all the fullness should dwell, and by him to reconcile all things to himself, by him, whether things on earth or things in heaven, having made peace through the blood of his cross." The preeminence of Christ, the supremacy of Christ, through the words of Paul to the letter to the church at Colossae. I'm reminded when I read this of a couple of things. Number one, in these 7 verses, we see the term all things 3 times. And if we look elsewhere, we can see the term all things multiple times. I've searched scripture and I've yet to find some things or things that I choose or things that I decide as being part of any discussion. Simply can't find those terms. Paul rightly says that Christ is in all things. All things. Things were created by him, for him. That being said, it would seem that it would be difficult to think that God purposely created anything that was evil. He didn't. All things were created for good, for him, and for his will. It's only when people use those things that were created for their own purposes do those things potentially become evil. I'm reminded of a joke where a scientist comes to God and says, "I've figured out how you created life, and I can do it myself. I can create a being that can breathe on its own, can think, can do all of the things that you put in man when you created him." God says, "That's great. Show me how you do it." So the scientist reached down and picked up a handful of dirt and God said, "No, no, no, hold on. Get your own dirt." Man cannot create. Man can only use what God created. And God created all of those things through Christ for his purposes. If we remember that and we remember our proper place, we can more easily put God and Christ in their proper place. They have supremacy over us because they created everything. God created everything by him, for him, and through him. There is no option B. There's only option A. Remember that. God bless.